All right, so good morning, everyone. My name is Kaitlyn Chang. Really glad to meet all of you. Thank you so much for coming at this early time. I really appreciate it because I was actually really scared that there would be nobody. And there is people, so yay, go early people. Yay, I'm not an early people. Unfortunately, I have to apologize because it seems that the font files are all broken up, so maybe they're going to look a bit strange. Unfortunate, but still. So here it goes. So I'm going to today talk about how to be a tree instead of being a stick. What is this? So this is actually a stick. That is the story of me for 13 years of my career. What do I want to talk about? Actually, this is me and my mom about like 35 years ago. My mom, when she was pregnant with me, was an aspiring associate professor. Yeah, and she was in academia. She wanted to continue on doing this. But she, fortunately or unfortunately, married a typical conservative Asian traditional man who came also with an even more typical traditional conservative mother-in-law who said to her, if you're going to keep working after you had the baby, you're going to be a terrible wife and you're going to be a terrible mother. So I really suggest that you stop working. So, which is very unfortunate, and so she actually did get so much stress from it that she did end up having to leave her job and started being a stay-at-home mother. As a result, although she gave me lots of love, and she still does, what she told me over and over the years as I was growing up was, you have to have your career. You have to be a career woman, you have to be a professional woman, and you have to be very proud and strong. That's what I did, yeah. So I started working very early on in my career at Samsung, and literally started climbing up the corporate ladder. This is actually a picture of me giving a speech in front of like 500 new recruited people at Samsung, talking about the pride of being in Samsung, yeah. So yeah, I used to do those kind of things. I did really enjoy working for them on one aspect because I'm a very enthusiast of tech in general, and I really believe in the power that technology and innovation can have in bringing out the potentials of people. That's what I really like to do, and that's why, for example, I've worked on a project like Samsung Power Sleep that maybe some of you know about, which was all based on the idea that, you know what, we're creating so many smartphones, yeah? And then in these smartphones there's so much computing power that we actually don't need, right? Because every year there's new smartphones and every year there's better and higher specs, but what do we actually do with it? Looking at Facebook, right? Or Tinder. Yeah. And then we said, well, isn't it normal usually when you have an excess of things, you donate it, right? And why is that not possible for smartphone computing powers? What if we could start donating the excessive computing power on our smartphones to, let's say, places where they need it really a lot, like research labs or universities where they can't afford to keep buying supercomputers, although the number of the sheer mass of data that has to be computed is increasing exponentially by the moment. So that's where the whole project idea started. It's one of the most, let's say, proud projects that I've ever worked on. And as a result, I started getting more and more higher up the corporate ladder. I started getting promoted and so forth. And it all looked good. I even became the managing director here in Austria and Switzerland and was in charge of the whole operations here and also the CE markets. It all looked good, but also actually on the inside, there was pure hell. So I can laugh at it right now, but at that time it was terrible because the company at that time, the branch office here, had been going through a lot of financial difficulties, and I was actually brought in to try to somehow change that, right? But I didn't know at all how to be a business person. Yeah, I was good at what I was doing before, but that had nothing to do with corporate finance or taxes or labor laws. But I did realize that the more you start getting higher up in your career, the more you start realizing that you have to know a lot of different things at the same time. And at that time I didn't. So I struggled a lot. I was working 18 hours per day, every weekend, having to make decisions about things that I had no idea about, like finance and corporate taxes. At the end of a few years, I actually had to make the decision to close down the office, the branch office, and fire 20 people all at the same time, which was a really terrible experience for me, actually. So after that day, I actually broke down, had a burnout, and went through a very severe depression. Basically, what happened was the stick that I was up till then for 13 years broke, almost. Yeah. I really wanted to somehow try to change that life, because I knew that I had been somehow in that silo, in that one stick way for a long period of time, and I had somehow put a stop to it. I had to change it somehow so that it's not a stick, it's not a broken stick anymore. And what do? I decided to leave that company, stay in Austria instead of going back to Korea. And then I thought it was really difficult. So where do I start? It was very overwhelming. And then I decided that probably it's best to start small. From small projects, small things. I started my MBA because I thought, yeah, I really have to learn about this business thing if I'm going to keep moving forward. Also, I started some side projects with friends or colleagues that I used to know, which led actually into consulting projects. And then those actually led to my actual job. And right now, yeah, a lot of different things are happening at the same time for me. I'm dividing my time between many different things. And one of them is actually like what was mentioned, that I am on the Vorstand of Women of Vienna. But that's just one of the things that I'm doing. I'm also head of innovation and technology and strategy at a creative agency here. And also right now starting my, co-founding my startup. So this is more or less where my story begins again. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. Because I do actually think that currently we are living really in a very, very exciting, amazing time, right? We're seeing artificial intelligence, voice recognition technology, automated cars that we're going to hear about today, and a lot of different things, gene engineering. All these things actually, what are they headed to? They all have some sort of a similarity, in my point of view, and that is that it's all that technology is trying to become more and more natural. Yeah? It's trying to mimic the human life or the actual natural environment much more than it could before, because it used to be before connecting dots, right? But then now when you have so many dots, then the lines between these dots become much more curvy. They become much more smooth and therefore much more natural, right? Artificial intelligence is all about computers trying to think just like humans do. Voice recognition is all about computers understanding how we talk, not how we type, and then them talking back to us in a very natural way, and so forth. Yeah. What all of that means actually, even for us in the world and in our lives, also means that the whole life and working life and everything is now becoming much more flexible. And while that is happening, although, what I also think is very interesting is things like this happening. I think we all pretty much know, for instance, the case of Uber CEO having to resign after his whole entire successful startup, tech startup, has been accused multiple times, hundreds of times, with sexual harassment allegations and sexism at work and stuff. And he had to actually resign because of the rampant bro culture that was so evident in these startups. And if you look at the data, it's actually shocking. Yeah? And it's not just in Austria, not just in some parts of the world, it is worldwide, that we don't see so many women in these tech startups that are actually taking advantage of the exciting technological advances that's happening. And I started thinking, why is that? Yeah, that's such a shame. I started asking around to people around me, and so many people, especially men, have given me this answer. Because I said, why are there not so many females in the startup scene? And then they were like, I think it's because they're risk averse. Every time I heard this, I really wanted to punch them in the face. Sorry if you're also here. I definitely do not think that's the case. I actually think that women also have a lot of superpowers, of course, that we can leverage and take really advantage of in this changing era. One of the examples being yeah, that we are actually awesome multitaskers. We all know this on our brains, yeah? Might be a stereotype, but you can know this the moment you try to ask a man who's trying to cook a question, try talking to them. It gets very difficult, yeah? But we don't. That's just one of the examples. And I thought, and we have all these superpowers that are very actually in line with the new trends, how the world is changing in terms of technology. Why can't we leverage that well enough? How do we do that? Talked with a lot of women, especially because I meet a lot of different women here through Women of Vienna. And one of the most common things that I hear is this thing where, yeah, I know that there's a lot of change happening and there's a lot of new exciting things, but I'm also in my field and it's really difficult to get out of it, or I don't want to get out of it, right? I don't want to all of a sudden quit my job to start something. And I hear that very often, which is completely fine. Because I think best thing that you can do, especially as a multitasking superhuman women, is starting with side projects. Yeah? You don't have to jump ship. You don't have to start all over. You can just start with side projects. What does that mean? For me, it went on like this. I started thinking about what are the kind of things that I can do on the side, maybe as a small project, maybe something for fun, that I can always leave if it didn't work out. Yeah? And when I started doing that, it started somehow linking all of themselves with each other and then creating this some sort of an organism effect where it's really like branches of a tree where you do one thing and then through that thing you get to know these people, and maybe with those people you do another project which leads to another project and so forth. Yeah? Or the experience that you've gotten from one side project helps you to go to another side project and start that because you have the experience doing that. I say really embrace your hobbies because this is one of the open innovation theory stuff that we learn about in MBA. But it is very apparent, of course, that research shows that over and over again, even in very high-tech society that we are living in right now, when one field has a really, really difficult problem to solve that they haven't been able to solve for years, actually, surprisingly, very often, the solution is in a completely different field, and they've already been working on it and using it. It's just that these two fields haven't been communicating with each other. That's why they didn't know that this solution was there. For example, like the people who couldn't use the dust, and then these were the people in the medical hospitals. They had no idea that the semiconductor people actually already were using this technology for years and years. And so if you start branching out and learning new things and talking with different people outside of your fields, it just starts to roll on itself. And this is really the benefit of starting and really trying out your side projects that might not be the big thing that you're jumping ship right now. And that's also why I say really embrace your hobbies, even if it's something like baking cookies or cupcakes, because I see that also very often, and I do think that's such a shame that because of this whole Me Too era and everything and feminism, women should be empowered. A lot of women I see are sort of embarrassed to admit that they actually like cooking or to post pictures of the cake that they've baked or say that I like fashion. I think that's all completely fine because those can also be the seeds of the new projects, the new side projects that you're doing that maybe can be even linked with something else that you're doing or your actual professional expertise. It doesn't matter because if you find these things, these little side projects that you can be passionate about, and usually your hobbies are things that you can be very passionate about, then it starts to roll much easier. Another thing is really, side projects are the best for multitaskers. I get asked very often, okay, so if you're doing all these different things, how do you manage your time? And I would like to share with you all maybe one little tip that I've recently discovered, which is not doing to-do lists, but actually managing all my tasks on a calendar. So that's actually how my calendar looks for this week. So don't please read the details. I didn't have time to blend them out. But so I hate to-do lists, especially because most to-do lists, you start filling them up. I like writing them, but then I end up writing so much that it's actually never gets really deleted. And then it just keeps on piling and piling, and then I get stressed. And then I started thinking, this is really terrible. How do I maybe improve this? And then I started trying this method using the good old Google Calendar and inputting every single task that I would have to do for this week, and then really allocating how much time would I need to do it, right? And then allocating those blocks within the time that I have within this week, right? That actually becomes a much more realistic to-do list for you. You see also if you're being overly ambitious. Also, you see, at first I was very frustrated because I couldn't put in tasks like after 12 midnight. And I was like, why doesn't it work? Like it had to go to the next day. But then realized that that's actually good, because that means, yeah, I have to sleep. And Google is telling me that I have to sleep. Yeah, that's good. No, but really, so please, if you're also trying out many different side projects and having difficulty with time management, this, like literally thinking of the things that you have to do in terms of time management is really helpful. Yeah, second thing that I hear very often is, yeah, well, Kaitlyn, I'm really jealous of you that you found your startup idea. I'm not really the creative type. I hear this so many times, and I think that's also such a shame, because I believe really that creativity lies in everybody. It's just that you have to know better how to take it out. And so that's why I was planning to give you some tips. For example, try not to think about ideas. If you're trying to think of ideas, they never come. Or they could if you're Albert Einstein or a genius. They usually don't come. What is much, much easier is when you start thinking about problems. Problems in your daily life that you don't like, that makes you feel annoyed or stressed or you hate it, that you really feel strongly about. And then you can start thinking about, okay, then how can I change that? Yeah? For example, like, yeah, I hate my to-do list. Is there any way that I can do it? I think even that Google Calendar thing, maybe that could be a startup. Who knows? If any one of you would like to do it, please do it and make it for me. That would be also great. I also thought, for example, German grammar is so shit. It's really difficult. I feel really stupid when I'm writing in German. It would be really difficult to find new love when I'm 70 years old. Why isn't there a Tinder for older people? Please also make this. This is a new idea that I have. I have no time to do it now. So if you have the resources, please make it. I think it would be really great. And so forth. Actually, Women in Vienna also started from one simple question where one person said, you know, there are so many these Facebook groups out there in the world these days, but they're all very co-ed. And she really wanted to ask, where can I go and buy a really good-sized, good-fitting bra? And she felt embarrassed about asking this in a group full of men, because the moment she did that, excuse me, she started getting personal messages saying, hey, you want to hang out? So, so she said, no, I'm going to make my own group, which is full of women only, where women can ask these questions to each other. And actually, that's why it has turned out to be one of the most successful groups, women groups here in Vienna. I'll show you the stats later. Yeah, and always really keep your antenna open. So while you're thinking about those problems, you have to keep your antenna open, because I do also see this happening very often, that while you might be having an idea, this is sometimes very, let's say, far off from what's actually happening in the world. Or it has, let's say, it has been already done, or it's very far from what the actual world really wants. So how do you really stay in touch? Some tips. For example, if you aren't subscribing to Quartz already, I strongly suggest that you do so. Quartz newsletters are the best newsletters in the world, I dare say, because they cover the recent world affairs so that you can be on top of what's happening in the world, but it's not too heavy. They send you an email every day. You can read it in about like 5 minutes. And they really try to write it very easily and explain what it means, so that you don't have to understand all the political relations and whatnot, but still get a very good overview. Also, Der Standard, if you haven't already, follow them on Instagram. because nobody reads the whole newspaper these days. Nobody has the time, but they're doing a great job turning their headlines and the important news of the day into Insta stories. So if you follow them and you're looking at your Insta stories, you always get your dose of the most interesting news of the day, together with the photos and stuff. So it's very easy to digest. Also, for non-native German speakers like me, it's also a very good way to practice your German. So that's also very good. Another thing, of course, the Y Combinator, one of the world's most, celebrated incubator accelerator programs, always has this thing called Requests for Startups, where you see on the right-hand side a list of all the areas that they would like to see new startups in, right? So this is let's say the various fields, like, for instance, AI, voice apps, longevity, anti-aging, and so forth. So all of these themes are the themes that they think will be very important for new startups to really tackle in the new future. And this list keeps getting updated. Yeah. So if you haven't already checked this out already, please do so. And when you are trying to develop your own ideas or your own side projects, always try to see if there's anything that you could do with your expertise in these fields. Yeah, and merge different things. This is, let's say, like one typical creative exercise that we like to do. You can also do it at home when you're having a party. It's a creative game for nerds. I think of myself as a nerd, so this is very fun. Like, grab random objects, like 20 objects from the home, better if they're very different in terms of purpose and look. And then everybody just gets to pick 2 random objects. And then imagine if these 2 objects were together, what kind of a new product could this be? Yeah. And why do I say this? Because it's always easier to imagine new things when you are having something, when you're combining 2 things that are completely different, and then start thinking about it. And then crazy ideas keep coming out, and then who knows, maybe this can be another side project that you can start working on. Meet very, very different people, because really, I think, and all of you who are sitting here now probably know already how to do this, because you are here to be inspired, you're here to talk and to listen to other people who maybe come from completely different backgrounds as you do. Because all these people that you meet, different people from different backgrounds, will all be really inspiring you, maybe making that one more branch, and then really enabling you to go further. Last thing that I hear is this. Yeah, I have an idea that I'm thinking about. I'll start next year. Yeah. Please don't. Please start now. Yeah, because I think one of the biggest things that I would really like to encourage everyone to do is please think bigger of yourself. Yeah. Please think that actually you can do this, or you can do more, or you can be a bigger person or in a higher position, whatever it might be. Please think and believe that you can. Because a lot of times I see people saying, yeah, that sounds like a cool thing, but I'm not good enough. I don't think I'm good enough. That is really, really not the way to go. Just believe it and then fake it till you make it, and then you will really get there. Start small, and the best way to start small is by offering to help. When I first came to Vienna in 2012, I literally knew nobody in this city. Within the past 6 years, I think I'm standing here, so I think I did get to know a bit more people. How did all of that start? I literally went to the organizers of TEDx Vienna and said, you know what, I really, really like what you guys are doing, and I really want to help. Can I please help? And the person didn't know me and said, yeah, but, well, and we ended up having a 2-hour interview. And then after that, he said, okay, well, it's going to be a lot of work. You're not getting paid at all, but still, you can try. And that's where I started to get to know a lot of different people, and then it all started branching out from there. And that's the key, I think, really, to starting very small. Just always offer to help, even if it's just a friend or a project that a friend is working on. And then it really can branch out from there. Then it's not so scary anymore, and you don't have to jump ship, but still you can start new things. Yeah, also, like, if there's anything that's on your bucket list, and then, like, it comes to you right now, although you feel like you're not really ready for it, just do it. So there's a really great quote that I love from Marissa Mayer. And she said, every time I tried to do something that I felt that I wasn't quite ready for yet, but I did it anyway, and I think those were always the moments that I grew up the most. I seriously really believe in it, because this is one of my key life mantras, where you should really try to do things that both excite you and terrify you at the same time. Why is that? I made that into a nice diagram. So the things that are exciting me are the things that I'm comfortable with, the things that I like, my passion, my hobbies. But if you only do those, you're basically staying in your comfort zone and not really improving. The things that terrify you are actually the danger zone. It's the risk zone. So of course, if you only do those things, you're reckless. But we're not teenagers anymore, right? But the intersection between these two things is actually where literally you can really grow, and there's a lot of growth potential for you, right? So always try to see, whenever you are having a new idea for a new project, try to think about it, whether it excites me, yeah, but it's also scary as hell, then do it, because then you will grow. Yeah, so 2 years later, I've become, a head of strategy and innovation at an agency. Also, Women in Vienna, these are the stats. We have more than 13,000 members, so if you haven't already, please join us. Another really interesting thing about the whole Women of Vienna group is that, yes, yeah, it's a very interactive and helpful group. And I think that's also a very female-specific thing, where we're seeing a ton of interactions, like almost 90 active members. That's, I think, not heard of in Facebook groups normally. And just 2 days ago, this one woman posted that she's living alone and she thinks that there's a 20-centimeter long spider in their house. She didn't know what to do about it. And then another woman, who was a complete stranger, actually offered to come to her house and take it out, because she was not afraid of spiders. So these kind of things happen on this platform, which is amazing, I think. And this also totally illustrates the power of what women can do. I'm also the mentor and entrepreneur in residence at Lemmings I. This is an arts and artificial intelligence focused incubator, where we meet basically, let's say, every weekend for about a few months, 2-3 months, where we're trying to come up with, do these hackathons, come up with new ideas, and actually make a product within that weekend. And having this experience is also in line with what I've been talking about, that just try and start it and try making it, because most of the things are doable within a weekend. And then you can try fine-tuning it, but then it just gets better and better. You also realize if it's bad, you can drop it right away, but also if it's good, you've started it. And oftentimes starting it is really what's important. Last but not least important, actually most important, I have also been able to really start co-founding my startup. This for me personally is very important, because that time, 2 years ago, when I had my burnout and depression, after being a stick for 13 years, I didn't feel like I could do anything ever again. I didn't feel like I could lead a business again. I didn't feel like I could do anything, actually. But really, starting out from these small side projects and then branching out has really helped me to regain my confidence and really try again and be able to start again, which I'm very, very grateful of. So let's see a video for final closing.
Sleep on, dream
So, yeah, it's one of my favorite commercials ever. But really, let's not be like those people on the treadmill or roll or whatever that is. Let's really try to start small and really maybe branch into actually becoming a tree, not be a stick. If you have any questions, feel free to come to me later or ask me, email, Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm there. But really, try to be inspired today, ladies and gentlemen, and really try to listen to others, keep your minds open, and thank you for coming. Thank you.